In the heart of Ravenswood, Vermont, a quaint town known for its cobblestone streets and antique shops, there stood an old clock shop that had been there for as long as anyone could remember. The shop, owned by 72-year-old Henry Whittaker, was a local landmark. Henry was a master clockmaker, known for his intricate designs and the mysterious air that surrounded him. He lived alone above the shop, his life revolving around the ticking and chiming of his clocks. But on the night of March 12, 2018, the ticking stopped, and the town was left with a mystery that would haunt them for years. It all began when Henry didn't open his shop that morning. This was unusual. Henry was a man of routine, and his shop had never missed a day of business in over 50 years. Concerned, a neighbor called the police, who arrived to find the shop locked and the lights off. When they forced their way inside, they found Henry's body slumped over his workbench, a pool of blood beneath him. He had been stabbed in the chest, and the murder weapon, a small, ornate dagger, was lying on the floor beside him. The police were baffled. Henry was a quiet, reclusive man with no known enemies. He had no family, no close friends, and no apparent reason for anyone to want him dead. The only clue was a strange note found clutched in Henry's hand. It read, "The clock strikes at midnight." The note made no sense to the police, but it sent a chill through the town. Henry's clocks were famous for their precision, and many of them were displayed in homes and businesses throughout Ravenswood. The idea that one of them might hold a clue to his murder was both intriguing and terrifying. The investigation led the police to Henry's workshop, a cluttered space filled with half-finished clocks, tools, and stacks of old books. Among the books, they found a leather-bound journal filled with Henry's handwritten notes. The entries were cryptic, filled with references to the secret and the final piece. The last entry, dated the night of his death, read, "I've found it. The clock is complete, but now I fear for my life." The police were intrigued. What was the secret Henry had discovered? And what did it have to do with his clocks? They decided to search the shop more thoroughly, and that's when they found it a hidden compartment in the floor beneath Henry's workbench. Inside was a small, intricately designed clock, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was made of gold and silver, with tiny gears that seemed to move on their own. And in the center of the clock face was a small, blood-red gemstone. The clock was ticking, even though it hadn't been wound. The police were stunned. They took the clock to a local historian, who identified it as a rare, eternal clock, a legendary device said to have been created by a 17th century clockmaker who claimed it could control time itself. The historian explained that the clock was rumored to be cursed, and that anyone who possessed it would meet a tragic end. The police were skeptical, but they couldn't deny that the clock was connected to Henry's murder. They decided to investigate further, and that's when they discovered something even more shocking. Henry had been selling clocks to wealthy collectors all over the world, and many of them had died under mysterious circumstances shortly after receiving their purchases. The police began to suspect that Henry's clocks were more than just timepieces. They were instruments of death. The case took a dramatic turn when the police received a tip from a local woman named Margaret Lane. Margaret claimed that she had seen a man lurking outside Henry's shop on the night of the murder. She described him as tall and thin, with a scar running down the side of his face. The police recognized the description. It matched a man named Victor Kane, a known thief and con artist who had been seen in the area around the time of the murder. Victor was arrested and questioned, but he denied any involvement in Henry's death. He claimed that he had been hired to steal the eternal clock by a wealthy collector who was willing to pay millions for it. But when he broke into the shop, he found Henry already dead and the clock missing. He fled, fearing he would be blamed for the murder. The police were skeptical, but they had no evidence to prove Victor's involvement. The case grew colder with each passing day, and the town of Ravenswood was left to grapple with the unsettling truth that a killer was still at large. But then something extraordinary happened. On the night of March 12, 2019, exactly 1 year after Henry's murder, the eternal clock began to chime. It was midnight, and the clock had been sitting in the evidence room untouched for months. The sound was deafening, and when the police opened the box, they found the clock ticking faster than ever, the hands spinning wildly. And then the clock stopped. The hands froze at 12:03, and the room fell silent. The police were stunned. They decided to investigate further, and that's when they found something hidden inside the clock, a small folded piece of paper. It was a map with a single location marked in red ink. The police followed the map to a remote cabin deep in the woods outside Ravenswood. Inside, they found a collection of Henry's clocks, all ticking in unison. And in the center of the room was a man, the same man Margaret Lane had described. He was sitting in a chair, his face pale and his hands trembling. On the table in front of him was the eternal clock, its hands frozen at 12:03. The man confessed to Henry's murder, claiming that he had been hired by a secret society of collectors who believed the clock held the key to immortality. He had killed Henry to steal the clock, but when he realized it was cursed, he had hidden it away, hoping to escape its influence. But the clock had found him, and now he was paying the price. The man was arrested and charged with Henry's murder, but the case left the town of Ravenswood with more questions than answers. What was the secret of the eternal clock? And why had it chosen to reveal itself on the anniversary of Henry's death? The clock was locked away in a secure vault, never to be seen again. But the people of Ravenswood never forgot the story of Henry Whittaker and the cursed clock that had cost him his life. And every night at midnight, when the town's clocks chimed, they couldn't help but wonder if the eternal clock was still ticking somewhere, waiting for its next victim.